Welcome to the FSR channel. Today we will talk about a virus that may erupt at any time. Once it does, humans will become zombies and bite normal people. And this virus is incurable, until the worst outcome is that all humans become zombies and then go extinct. Scientists speculate that this virus may have erupted once, about 40,000 years ago, leading to the emergence of large-scale zombies worldwide. Each of our ancestors may have been survivors of this disaster. Scientists found that almost every one of us has a gene called PRNP on chromosome 20, which is used to fight against prion. All kinds of primitive people without this gene may have been extinct in the last zombie world disaster caused by prion. Time goes back to decades ago in the United States, when people discovered some deer in the wild. They became unstable in walking, drooling, dilated pupils, sluggish, attacking their own species, and even attacking humans. Deers that have been attacked by them may also experience the same symptoms, which has been a long-standing phenomenon, but it is not transmitted to humans and only spreads among deer herds, and has not received sufficient attention. Later, these zombie deer also appeared in places such as South Korea and Canada. In recent years, the zombie deer incident in the United States has become increasingly serious. According to official reports, in 2019, this type of zombie deer is sweeping across 24 states in the United States and Canada. The red markings in the figure indicate areas where over 25% of wild deer have already been infected, and some key areas even have infection rates exceeding 79%. Experts announced to the public that this virus is called prion. Zombie deer is the product of prion outbreak in deer herd. According to the current human understanding of prion, once the disease is incurable, prion will attack the brain and central nervous system of infected animals, making them unable to control their bodies. The body will be taken over by a mutated central nervous system. The main route of transmission of these prion is to eat the meat of infected animals. And the incubation period of these prion is as long as 1 year. This means that although a hunted deer looks healthy and its meat looks delicious, but in fact, prion virus already exists in its meat. Fortunately, it seems that the prion on these zombie deer is still difficult to infect humans, or even if humans carry it, it will not get sick. So far, the prion virus on these zombie deer is only transmitted among deer, and there is no case of human infection. But in the UK, the situation is different. In 2012, the mother of a British girl tearfully told a story on the BBC. She said her daughter is lively and lovely, likes swimming and sports, and also likes to eat steak and sausage rolls. But one day I noticed that she was a bit uncoordinated when walking. At first, I didn't pay much attention, but 2 months later, she suddenly couldn't walk. After being sent to the hospital for examination, the doctor coldly stated that there was variant Creutzfeldt's disease. Mom almost fainted in despair when she heard this word. Since then, the little girl has never stood up again. From the wheelchair to the hospital bed, for a year, the doctors were helpless, and her mother cried her tears dry. The little girl also passed away in pain. This so-called variant Creutzfeldt-Jakob disease is the mad cow disease that infects people, and mad cow disease is also a disease caused by prion. Like the zombie deer, this prion makes cattle become zombie, and it can also make humans sick. In 1996, Scotland reported its first case of human infection with mad cow disease. As of 2012, the UK has reported a total of over 170 cases, while other parts of the world have reported over 50 cases. It is said that after 2012, the government began to pay attention to mad cow disease, and cases of human infection have almost disappeared. So I didn't find any data after 2012. However, I still found that in 2012, the relevant research of the British Health Protection Agency showed that 1 in every 2,000 British people had signs of abnormal prion. Another tricky matter, there are over 400,000 tons of bovine carcasses infected with mad cow disease waiting to be processed in the UK, and they are stored in secret warehouses across the country. The processing is very complicated. First, thoroughly boil the beef in boiling water, and then chop it into minced meat. Then put the meat paste into a 1000 degrees Celsius incinerator and burn it to ashes. Until today, it will take at least a few years to completely burn these cow carcasses. Why is handling these bodies so cumbersome? This is the horror of prion, because it is not a virus at all. Back in the early 1950s, Kuru disease broke out in the old-growth forest in the South Pacific. The Flemish people who originally lived here were primitive tribes that rarely communicated with external civilizations, but the local government reported that a strange disease was erupting among these primitive people. Patients will crazy laughter, tremble all over, then have a fever, and then lose their language ability. Patients will begin to lose control of their bodies, and dying in an endless dance. At the beginning, some scientists studied Kuru disease and concluded that it was a genetic disease unique to the Frey people and not contagious, urging the government not to panic. But a scientist named Gadashek thought that the disease might be infectious, so he decided to go deep into the old-growth forest to thoroughly investigate the cause. After he entered the old-growth forest, Gadashek studied the bodies of patients with Kuru disease, but he did not isolate any suspicious deadly microorganisms, namely viruses, bacteria, fungi and other pathogens. Then, he focused his attention on the local people's diet and water sources, but still did not find any abnormalities. He also suspected that some heavy metals in the soil were causing the Kuru disease, but the test results remained nothing found. Then, he moved into the primitive tribe, ate and lived with the Frey people, lived together every day, and carefully observed every detail. Just as he was about to give up, a crucial event occurred. An elder in the tribe passed away due to Kuru disease. The most solemn ritual among tribal members is to take out the brains of the elder and share them with family members and other tribal elders for consumption. Gadashek pretended to eat his portion, but in fact, he secretly saved these samples. After returning to the laboratory, he carefully examined these samples and still found no pathogens. Then he crushed the sample and implanted it into the brain of a healthy gorilla, which developed symptoms of Kuru disease. Next, he filtered the sample with the aim of excluding any possibility of microorganisms and viruses, retaining only protein particles. As a result, even after these protein particles were transplanted into the brains of healthy gorillas, they could still be infected with Kuru disease. Next, he extracted a brain sample from the gorilla with Kuru's disease. The sample was divided into two parts. The first part filtered out all possible microorganisms and viruses according to the above steps, and the other part, in addition to filtering, also underwent protease treatment to denature all proteins. The first sample was able to infect other chimpanzees, while the second sample was not able to infect other chimpanzees. It seems that the problem lies in these proteins. Later, Gadashek concluded that Kuru disease is a disease caused by unknown pathogens, which are neither microorganisms nor viruses. Later, in 1982, another scientist named Stanley Prusina figured out that this unknown pathogen was the protein itself and named it prion. Prion is the abbreviation for protein. These two scientists also won the Nobel Prize in Physiology in 1976 and 1997 for their research on soft viruses. The modern scientific community attaches great importance to prion because it is too special. It is different from everything on Earth called life. Because it has no genetic material, but it can preserve genetic information through different folding forms of proteins, and these genetic information can make prion show some characteristics of life, such as reproduction and variation. The specific characteristics of these lives are that people will be infected after eating food with prion, and prion will be able to hide in the patient's body for a long time after infection. The incubation period may be very long, even lifelong, and it may also be passed on to the next generation through some unknown way of inheritance. But once the disease comes on, it can make the patient's central nervous system mutate, and the patient will become low in IQ, and the body will not be controlled, and eventually die in madness. Since prion has gone beyond our understanding of biology, any drug developed for biology is invalid for it, including our immune system will also freely release and let them rampage in our bodies. The vast majority of disinfected water and disinfection methods are ineffective for prion, because they are the protein itself. Even if heated to 600 centigrade, prion are still alive. High-intensity ultraviolet radiation is also ineffective on it. The truly effective way is to completely burn it in an incinerator, or use high-strength protein denaturants to completely melt it. Based on our current understanding of prion, we can speculate that wherever there is protein in the human body, brain, food, bacteria and cells, there may be prion. You may think this is just a scientific conjecture. Human understanding of prion is not necessarily correct, but in 2019, Chinese scientists found prion in virus. Soft viruses really have the potential to be ubiquitous and erupt at any time. Although human beings do not know much about prion, scientists have made it clear that prion does not break out easily. At present, there is only one known cause of the outbreak, that is, cannibalism. The final study suggests that the outbreak of mad cow disease is likely due to some unscrupulous merchants processing dead cows directly into feed and feeding them to normal cows in order to save feed. At this point in the story, a frightening conjecture surfaced. That is, why we all have prion resistance genes on chromosome 20. This may be because of the last prion outbreak. Our ancestors and other primitive people had the habit of cannibalism. And this habit is very common in brutality. But later our ancestors restrained the habit of cannibalism, and at the same time had the corresponding resistance gene for prion, so they survived luckily. So to this day, we all have a soulful aversion to cannibal tribes, but also a genetic curiosity. And if this curiosity is greater than the aversion on which day, or there is a serious and long famine, we may cross the red line again. Then prion will break out again, let us become zombies, and finally become extinct.